WTIM. You're listening to WTIM, your information station, and our morning show. It's brought to you by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville. I'm your host, Grayson Bauman. Joining us in this segment, Jack Myers, Public Affairs Specialist with the Social Security Administration. Good morning to you, Jack. How are you doing?
Good morning, Grayson. I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing all right on this end. Better now to have you here to talk to me a little bit about some of the things that Social Security has going on with you guys and the administration that is Social Security. I'm wondering, first and foremost, you mentioned to me ABLE programs are now actually going to be open to more people. We've touched on ABLE accounts and programs, but I'm wondering why they're now open to some more people. What do you got on that end?
Yeah, so, that's something I wanted to talk about this morning, Grayson, because, even though ABLE accounts are not administered by Social Security, we're not really involved with creating an account or anything like that. They're very important to people who are looking to qualify or are already qualified for benefits from our SSI, Supplemental Security Income Program. And, that's because these ABLE accounts will allow people with disabilities to save money without losing access to important benefits. They have tax benefits like tax-free growth and withdrawals when used for qualified disability expenses. So, they're really good accounts to have access to, because when you have money in an ABLE account, up to $100,000 is excludable when we talk about eligibility for SSI. So normally, if you're wanting to apply for the SSI program, that is a needs-based program. And if you have more than $2,000 in assets as an individual or $3,000 as a married individual, you don't qualify for SSI. But if you've got that money in an ABLE account, up to $100,000 can be excludable. So it is a very big deal for people looking to get on SSI. And something that's changed this year, to kind of get to the access being expanded part of this, is that it used to be the requirement to establish an ABLE account used to be that you had to have a disability that began prior to the age of 26. Effective 1/1 of 2026, ABLE account access has now been expanded to those who become disabled prior to age 46. So there are a lot more people all of a sudden, Grayson, who now have access to ABLE accounts and could create an ABLE account, which could help them be eligible for not just SSI, but other income-based programs like Medicaid, HUD housing assistance. So there's a lot of additional stuff that ABLE accounts can help people become eligible for.
Okay, so this change, now you increase the age limit to upwards of 20 years, now to age 46, obviously helping out in how many folks are able to do so as long as you became disabled prior to the age of 46. I'm wondering, Jack, what was the purpose or what was the point kind of behind this change? Was it just to get more people under that umbrella, or was there some other reason maybe?
My understanding, and again, we don't administer the ABLE accounts, so it's not necessarily directly us, but just important for our SSI recipients and potential SSI recipients. But my understanding is just that the purpose of the change was just to increase access, to make the ABLE accounts accessible to a lot more people. And again, that's going to do just that, because what used to be 26 is now an age 46 thing. So if you became disabled after 26 and were previously not eligible for an ABLE account, but became disabled prior to 46, you are now eligible. And if you're interested, should look into that. There are a lot of different ways you can look into that, Grayson. A lot of different states have their own ABLE accounts. Illinois, of course, is one of the states that has an ABLE account. You can look up information on the Illinois ABLE accounts at www.illinoisable.com. I would encourage you, if you live in Illinois, to start there. Look at our own state's programs to see if they meet your needs. But if they don't, then there are opportunities typically for you to establish accounts with most other states. You can only have one ABLE account, so you got to pick where you're going to do it. But it doesn't necessarily have to be the state you live in.
That's an interesting piece to that as well. You would almost kind of assume, I guess, that it would have to be through the state of Illinois, but interesting to know that it doesn't have to be. But now that umbrella, or at least the amount of folks that might fall under it, has expanded from 26 to 46 as of the beginning of this year. And you could save potentially up to $100,000 in your ABLE account without affecting the eligibility for your SSI benefits. I think that's a big deal for folks that have become disabled, especially after the age of 26. I have to imagine 20 additional years is going to add a lot of different people. So, Jack, thank you for telling us about that and the changes that came into effect at the beginning of this year. Now, I'm sure a lot of folks have a lot of questions when it comes to Social Security. And I'm wondering, what might you recommend when it comes to those FAQs, those frequently asked questions that maybe you can get a little bit easier information on?
Yeah, there are a lot of questions out there. There are a lot of questions about our programs. Our programs touch the lives of so many people. And a lot of people want to help, Grayson. They want to give you information about how it worked for them, or, what they know about how it worked for a family member. But you got to be careful with that because, some of these things are pretty specific to an individual, and your situation may not be exactly the same as your friend or your family member who's talking to you. And, unfortunately, as well intended as they are, sometimes they might get it wrong. They might not have the exact right details. So it's important that you go to the source and try to get information from Social Security. One of the ways you can do that is to go to our website, ssa.gov. There is a lot of great information there. There are opportunities to conduct business with us. You can do services through the website, like applications for retirement, or not survivor, retirement, spousal benefits, disability benefits, Medicare. So a lot of stuff you can do there through your My Social Security account. But another great spot to look is our frequently asked question page. So if you go to ssa.gov/FAQ for frequently asked questions, you will see kind of the current burning questions, if you will,
Mhm.
things that we're getting pretty frequently, the time of year, topics that are of most interest. They'll all show up there. And a lot of times you can find that your questions are pretty similar to what other people are asking right now. So you can get answers to those. And if you don't see it in that top section, then there is a breakdown by subject. So you can look at things like online services or retirement or disability and SSI, just as a few examples. You can see those categories and click into them and get the frequently asked questions that pertain to those particular categories. So it's just a really good way. I find that I kind of gravitate towards that on a lot of different places, websites. I find that I can get a lot of answers on the FAQ pages, and Social Security is no exception. You can get a lot of answers on our page, and that way you're going to the source and you're getting the right info. If you want more in-depth info on a particular topic, we do also have a publication section. So when you're at the ssa.gov page, you can look for publications, and there you can find our pamphlets and fact sheets on all different kinds of topics.
Well, and there are just so many questions. You mentioned basically don't play a game of telephone when it comes to your social security benefits. Don't just assume that just because they might be getting them, they know exactly what they're doing with them. And so I can completely understand why you would want to go to the source first and foremost. A quick question for you, Jack. I'm wondering, what would you say is the most frequently asked question that you get on a personal note?
On a personal, it varies, I guess, from time to time. One of the most common questions that I get probably has to do with what I'll call claiming strategies, I guess. When should I start collecting my Social Security benefit? That is a real common thing that people want some help with. And the reality of that, Grayson, is the answer is going to be different for from one person to the next. And we don't ever tell a person when would be the best time to collect benefits. What we do is we talk about what your options are. If you're talking retirement, you can start it at 62, but you're going to have a lower monthly benefit if you do that, and it's going to be permanently lower. So there is a cost associated with that. If you wait until 66 or 66 and a half or 67 or whatever your full retirement age is, then you'd get a full unreduced benefit. Or you could even defer beyond that until age 70 and have your benefit increase through what we call delayed retirement credits. So there are a variety of options there, and what makes sense to you is going to kind of depend on your personal financial situation, your health, your longevity in your family. All those sorts of things come into play. But that is a real common question, and you might have guessed this, but you can get information about that on the website. So if you go to ssa.gov and specifically in your My Social Security account, you can look at estimates of what your benefits would be at 62 or at 63, at your full retirement age, at age 70. So it's really a helpful way to kind of help you navigate through that decision, which is probably going to be one of the harder decisions you have to make when it comes to Social Security.
Well, and then that individualized approach to it too. Like, you mentioned, well, we're not going to give you an exact strategy, I guess, but we're going to try and give you as many options as we can. And that I think is what people are looking for. They don't want to call you and get just the run of the mill answer. They want something that is personalized to them. And that sounds like something that is given and continues to be given. And if not, then find a way to get to ssa.gov. It shouldn't be too difficult to do. Well, Jack, let's take ourselves a break. We're joined by Jack Myers, Public Affairs Specialist with the Social Security Administration here on the WTIM Morning Show, and we'll be right back with him to talk more. You're listening to WTIM, your information station.
WTIM. I'm Jim Taylor with the RFD Radio Network, inviting you to join us every weekday on this local radio station. Remember, local radio is where it counts every day. Local radio partners with local business to support local FFA chapters, 4-H clubs, and local agriculture. I join my teammates and fellow NAFB farm broadcasters Rita Frazier and Delaw Shonke to bring you the latest farm news, ag information, and markets. Start your day with us on RFD Illinois and stay close to local radio throughout the day. Together, we cover Illinois ag better. Let's check the markets now on the RFD Radio Network. I'm Jim Taylor. Corn, beans, and Chicago wheat all higher at this hour. March corn up 5 3/4, 432 1/4. May corn up a nickel, 439 3/4. December new crop, 458 1/4, up 4. March beans up 12 1/2, 1079 3/4. May beans up 12 3/4, 1092 1/4. And November new crop, 1093 up 10 1/4. March Chicago.
The Lady Tornado basketball team are on 96.5 thechill.com again this season. Listen on air or online for Lady Tornado basketball and playoff games brought to you by the Taylorville Community Credit Union, the Christian County YMCA, Rural Rentals, and Scooters Coffee.
The purple and gold are coming your way. The Taylorville Tornadoes are going to do it today.
Shop local first. When we make most of our purchases from local businesses, when we make the conscious decision to support our local communities, more good things happen. They support our schools, sports programs, and nonprofits. Keep our communities thriving. The Miller Media Group and these local businesses encourage you to shop local first. Marty and Donna Davis and all the team members at the McDonald's Taylorville, Pana, and Shelbyville locations. These local businesses and the Miller Media Group ask you to shop local first.
Shop local first. All across the area, shop here first.
Taylorville Care Center's personalized therapy program helps you get back to enjoying the season. Whether it's holiday gatherings or winter walks with the grandkids, they'll get you moving again. Click their icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Brandy Bruley here, Superintendent of Taylorville Schools. We're proud to be A+ in academics, the arts, and achievement. Find out the many ways we achieve student success every day by clicking our icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com and go Tornadoes.
Your information station, WTIM.
And we're back with our WTIM morning show here on your information station and brought to you by Landmark of Taylorville and our title sponsor and People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first. I'm your host, Grayson Bauman. In this segment, we're joined by Jack Myers, Public Affairs Specialist with the Social Security Administration. We talked to him a little bit about the ABLE accounts and some of those frequently asked questions. And as you can imagine, there are a lot of frequently asked questions about Social Security. What we want to turn our attention to now is about medical continuing disability reviews. And this is where I leave the floor to Jack. Jack, what can you tell me there?
I think this is a good topic for people to be aware of, Grayson, because if you receive Social Security disability or supplemental security income SSI disability benefits, I want you to know right up front here that we are required by law to review your case to verify that you still have a disabling condition that prevents you from doing substantial work. So at some point in time, while you're getting those benefits, we're going to have to take a look and just make sure that you still qualify and potentially more than one time, depending on how long you're getting those benefits. That review is a standard review. It's called a medical continuing disability review, but we like shortening things, so we'll call it just a CDR instead of a continuing disability review. So first and foremost, be aware that a CDR is just part of the process. It's standard for us to do that review. You don't really have to initiate that CDR, but it is your responsibility to make sure that you keep your mailing address and phone number up to date with us. And, that's true for a lot of reasons, but CDR is one of those reasons. And then what happens basically is when it's time to do one of those, we'll send some forms out to you, and it becomes important that you complete those and return them. And you'll have some options on how you do it. You're going to get paper forms in the mail from us. You can fill those out and return them, or when we send those out, we will also send a link to your My Social Security account, so you can log into your My Social Security account and you can do them electronically that way. You won't see that as an option unless you're due for a CDR, so that's not always going to be there, but that will be if you're due for a CDR. One of the things I like to tell people, and the reason I'm talking about this today, is because these benefits are important, Grayson. They're a lifeline for so many folks who are disabled and can't work. And when you get paperwork like that in the mail, it can cause some anxiety. It makes you think, oh my goodness, what's going on? Are they trying to cut me off? And some of the things that people do when they get that is, maybe they panic and they try to ignore it and they choose not to fill it out. Don't do that. That's the worst thing you can do. It doesn't mean that we're trying to cut you off. It just means that we have to do a review, and it's very important that you fill that out, because if you don't and you ignore it, then we do have to stop the benefits until we hear from you. So don't ignore it, fill it out. It doesn't mean we're trying to cut you off. If your condition hasn't improved, then you're not very likely to be cut off there. So, just take a breath, fill it out, get it back to us, and then we'll most likely probably, I can't say for sure because everybody's different, but as long as your condition hasn't improved, then we're probably not going to be stopping those benefits.
Okay, so don't ignore what we send you, and that's the first piece to that. Don't ignore it. Make sure that you get a hold of us, but also just know that folks like Jack aren't really interested in taking your money. Would those be the two big takeaways when it comes to these CDRs?
Yeah, yep, they would. And then the other thing I'll mention is whether or not we do this review, the timing kind of depends on how likely improvement is. So
Okay.
when we make the decision you're approved, we'll kind of decide how soon we should do that. So it could be within a year, it could be 3 years, it could be 7 years. And then those are just sort of loose guidelines. We don't always do them at those intervals, but just kind of gives you a rough idea when you could expect something like that. But you don't have to ask for it. We'll reach out to you when the time comes.
Jack, thank you so much for joining us here today, as you'd always do, and definitely appreciate your time this morning.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, Jack Myers, Public Affairs Specialist with the Social Security Administration, joining us here on the WTIM Morning Show.